How do I get better at empathy?
Brannon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Just,
Good.
yeah. What about you?
I'm doing great.
Nice. Um, how was your weekend?
It was good, man. We, you can see from my face, like I have this like really prominent forehead and these prominent cheekbones, and every single weekend I just get like torched.
Well,
So I was,
the UV rays were like really bad, really over the weekend, just so you know.
oh,
So,
were they?
anyways, yeah. I mean, you should see my legs that I got almost blisters.
Yeah, I was shocked. I sat out in just the sun. We were on this like artificial field for my daughter's soccer game, so it was like already radiating a lot of heat, but then just 2 hours in the sun, and I just think I just added another 5 years to my life. So I actually decreased 5 years off my
Yeah,
life,
you just
probably.
took five
Yeah.
years off of your life. Um, Um, well, yeah, it was hot. It was my legs look funny because like none of me is really burned except my legs, and they're just like bright red. So,
Yeah.
anyways, just a couple things before we get into the topic today. I just wanted to remind everybody we got something really good going over at reclaimyourheart.org. Um, it's awesome, Tyler. Do you want to just talk about it just a little bit?
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of people signing up. I'm guessing it's a lot of people who listen to the podcast already, but there's a free community and then there's like upgraded parts of the community if you want more. But it's basically the reason you're listening to this podcast. We're trying to build a community where there's going to be um, structure and support, and then there's going to be a course, and then there's going to be levels of different kinds of support for working your own healing journey, overcoming shame, trauma, betrayal, addiction, compulsive behaviors. And right now, it's been pretty cool. There's a lot of really cool people on there. There's been some pretty active comments that have kind of started. We're pretty new on the process, but man, I get really excited every day to check my Reclaim Your Heart feed and see what else has been going on.
Yeah, I mean, you have you can partake as much or as little as you want to, and it's an array of different stuff. And so like today, for example, if you were over at reclaimyourheart.org, Tyler and I do a live Q&A where you can come ask us questions in real time. And so that's today, right?
Yeah, that's every
Uh,
Monday.
yeah, we do some mindfulness stuff. We do some educational stuff, some trauma work. You can it's awesome. So and you can join the free community, and you get some information with that. But if you join our community, the paid
You're,
community,
if you want to work, if you actually want to work on it, there's a course that we've created called the Healing Journey. And once you purchase the course, you get the upgraded community and it's pretty robust.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, anyways, just wanted to give a little plug about that. We're spending a lot of time over there, and the question we have today, an answer to that is come work the program. If you want to know how to be more empathetic and hold space for people, you're going to have to do your own work. So come work our program, and it's going to help you be more empathetic.
We actually are using a question that came from the platform today as our topic. So this question was actually submitted over there and now we're doing a podcast on it. So
Yeah. So should we dive into it, Tyler?
yeah, let's dive into it here. I'll just read the question, Brandon, then we can jump in and have the discussion. So it says, I just made a post that do you guys want help with anything? And this came back. Any help with empathizing and holding space? When I simply acknowledge a hurt, it seems to come across as cold and uncaring. But any attempt to understand the hurt, and I seem to find a need to defend the fact that I'm being poorly understood. What I intended to say was so different. But of course, then I'm gaslighting and or belittling. So what I'm hearing is like if I just try to we need to talk about this concept of holding space, I think, today in the episode, Brandon, because people don't understand what that really means. But the question is really, I'm trying to acknowledge that I've done things and that I've hurt I'm guessing my partner here. But when I only do that, then it doesn't feel like it's enough. But if I try to step in and understand the hurt, then I find myself getting too defensive to actually hold the space.
Yeah. I'm wondering, there's a lot to this question that we don't know, and we like, for example, Tyler, is this person really bad at this? Or are they getting feedback from their partner that they're really bad at this? And that's really important, that distinction, because a lot of times we wait for validation from a partner to tell us that we're doing this well. And if you're waiting for that, for them to give you your grade, so to speak, or tell you what you're good at, what you're not, or how you're getting defensive, it, you're setting yourself up, because an ability to empathize and to be empathetic is all within you. And um, so if he really is getting defensive, then that's awesome because he's self-reflective and aware that that's what he's doing. He might not be getting defensive, but his partner's really triggered by him trying to empathize or whatever, and he's getting that feedback. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, then that leads to another question, Brannon. Then that how do you even measure whether or not you're good at empathy? Like what
Um,
we probably need to define what empathy is and what are markers of what it means to be good at empathy.
exactly. Um, let's do that. So, what is empathy?
Empathy is the ability to connect with the emotion of the other person without making it about yourself.
Yeah, that's a good one, Tyler. Well, I like that last part, without making it about yourself. Um, I think I would take it further than even emotion. It's like an ability to connect to another person's energy. They're how they're resonating, and maybe we could, that is emotion, right? But maybe I'm splitting hairs here. But it's like just connecting to them, and then not making it about yourself. So another term we use all the time is holding space.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part that people think certain things about that term holding space that I think actually pull them away from what an empathetic response is rather than into a more empathetic response, and yet they think that they're doing empathy in quotes.
Right. You can't fake empathy, right, Tyler?
Right. And well, and there's a dialectic inside of the definition we just gave too. The dictionary says empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. But we just said the ability to connect to those emotions or energy without making it about you. So here's the dialectic is I have to be familiar enough with my own feelings to connect those feelings to your feelings without then making it about me.
I just laugh because what you just said is true. I understand what you just said. I just don't know if many people will, because it's like so paradoxical and like, well, okay, that sounds great. No wonder we get these questions, Tyler. Like
Yeah.
you just gave us an algorithm that's like, what? Like, okay.
Okay. That's like, have you ever seen that movie, The Mystery Man? Like, it's like this spoof on superheroes, and they have like, Mr. Furious, and his only thing is he's got an anger problem. Then they have another guy who's a shoveler, and his special thing is using shovels, and they have a guy who throws spoons instead of knives. And one of the guys, one of the superheroes is the Sphinx, and all he does is he walks around and he gives like these really pithy remarks that are like, when you know where to stand, you'll stand where you know. Like this, like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that. It's
that's
like,
exactly how that felt. Like, oh, thanks for answering the
uh,
question. Um,
but I really actually, I actually think that what I just said is onto something there.
oh, you're spot on. You're
Yeah.
spot on. We just have to like, yeah, decipher it. But, but that's the point, right? I think that's why a lot of people struggle is this word empathy is such a buzzword where it's like, yeah, be empathetic. Empathy is what builds trust. Empathy, empathy. It's wonderful. Brené Brown's like shouting it from the rooftops, like, well, that's great. And so we're all like, okay, I'm going to be empathetic. And then you go into your relationships and you suck at it or you struggle with it. And you realize, like, oh, this isn't something that I just do. This isn't something that I just all of a sudden figure out. And it comes back to what I was saying earlier about working your program in terms of your doing your own trauma work, healing yourself on the deepest levels. Your ability to empathize is directly correlated to to you trusting yourself and knowing who you are.
Exactly. I think that's people want to know the skill of empathy. And in order to even start to get to the skill of empathy, you have to be committed internally to the practice of shame resilience. The more shame resilient you are, the better you will be at empathy.
The more healthily boundaried you are, that you have to have that shame resiliency and those healthy boundaries in order to in order to connect to somebody with that empathy.
In order to stay being for the other person instead of making it about you.
Yeah.
So for example, if my wife comes to me and says, "Hey Tyler, like you're a terrible listener." Um, if I'm not shame resilient, that criticism is going to feel personal. That personal story is going to fuel my shame. My shame is going to kick back a response to her that's more about
Defensive.
defending myself or disappearing or protecting myself. And I'm already out of being for her.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm shame resilient, what I can do is I can go, wow, like the fact that you just said that statement that way tells me that you must be feeling this, 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 this. You must be feeling neglected, unimportant, devalued, whatever that
Or just
is.
help me understand
Or wow, like,
what you're
yeah,
feeling.
can you help me understand what's going on for you there, where that's coming from? And then she says, well, you always choose this and this and this and this and this and this. And if I'm shame resilient, then I can sit there without making it personal and go, sometimes I do choose those things. You're right. And I can see where you're coming from. I haven't even yet agreed with her all the way,
Right.
but now I'm there and now I can stay in this space where I can use myself as an instrument to connect with her energy and her feelings and be for her
Yeah.
without even needing to maybe do anything other than connect in that way.
Well, yeah, I think that is a really important point, Tyler. What you just described is empathy. Like you and I could give all kinds of reflective listening skills and tools and this and that. But the fact of the matter is learning how to empathize is learning how to know where they stop and you begin, and how to show up with the emotions and the feelings that you have to love. Empathy is love, right? Um, and so you can only love somebody as much as you love yourself. So if you're Tyler, if you come to me and you're like, I'm hurt, I'm sad, or Brannon, why'd you tell that story on the podcast? And if I don't love myself, then I'm like, well, you told that other story. Or I'm so sorry, I'm the worst, I'm terrible, I'm awful. I'm caring about loving me in that moment, not about connecting to you and what that's like for you, and hearing you and holding that space for you. Um, Boundaries have to be there. Shame resiliency has to be there. An understanding of self has to be there in order to show up for somebody. Can we come back to the question that was asked, Tyler? I want to break that down a little more.
Yeah.
If you
You want me to
could
read
go
it
over it
again?
again. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just see where I had it at here. Any help with empathizing and holding space? When I simply acknowledge a hurt, it seems to come across as cold and uncaring. But any
Okay, let's
attempt.
start, let's like break this down piece by piece if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yep.
When I simply acknowledge a hurt, it comes across as cold and uncaring. Okay? Uh, just is simply acknowledging a hurt, is that empathy?
I think it's like the very beginnings of trying to understand what you're going to empathize with.
Okay. So what if I'll give a maybe dumb example here, but what if my wife comes to me and she's just furious that I left the lights on all night long, right? But I didn't. Like I actually turned them all off, and my daughter got up and turned them all on. Okay. Should I acknowledge that? Yeah, I'm gonna acknowledge your hurt. That yeah, that I left the lights on all night long.
I think you're hitting one of the places where people break down in empathy is that instantly is already making it personal rather than just,
It's about me.
yeah.
It's about
Ins-
me, right?
Instead of just acknowledging, oh, I can see that you're upset. Right now, it doesn't even matter what the details are of the situation. We can get to that in a second. I can see that you're upset right now.
Yeah. So that's it, Tyler. I don't tell her it wasn't me. I also don't tell her, yeah, it was me. It was me is another defense mechanism against my own shame. I'm lying now.
Yeah, I'll just do that to get you off my back.
Yeah. So she's saying, I don't feel safe with you that you'll show up for me. And then I show up lying to her in order to show up for her. That's not empathy. What you said, Tyler, and you can see it there. I'm actually stopping and acknowledging your pain. That's it. I'm not copping to anything that's not mine to cop to. I'm not defending against anything and telling you what is. I'm just acknowledging the pain. Okay? So maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know. But to stop and just be like, "Oh, I like you're frustrated. Is that it? Are you frustrated? Are you sad? Like tell me more.
Yeah.
Help me understand better because I can tell there's something here, right?" And so what does he say when he does that? What happens in his question?
You want me to go continue on the question? Before I
Yeah.
do that, and maybe let's not go too far down the road. We just had a comment to go along with this. How do you do that without sounding so generic? Like the help me understand cannot say anything else, cannot say anything else and also show empathy is not saying anything holding space. So
The 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 like a lot of times you're not even saying anything.
sometimes you don't have to say anything to hold
It's a
space because
nod.
it's about you. Empathy is you using yourself as a complete instrument. Your voice, your heart, your energy, your thoughts, all of that comes together to be for your person, for the beloved one, for the one in front of you
Hmm.
that you're connecting with.
Yeah. So
Um,
sometimes the words can feel really cheap because it's like you're trying to jump into words here and fix this thing when I just need you to be here with me. And so sometimes the be here with you is just like a nod, like, hmm, yeah,
yeah,
or a hug, or but you're reading the situation to see what they need, right?
right.
So okay,
Okay, so why don't we keep going? So
yeah,
I simply acknowledge I heard. It seems to come across as cold and uncaring. Yeah, and it's like what he's saying too, really quickly before I go any further, is he's saying that his partner's feeling the energy from him. Likely, that's like what he's doing is looking at him and like, well, sucks to be you.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's acknowledging that there's a hurt, but he's not connecting to that hurt because he's too
right,
afraid that he's going to take it too personal.
yeah.
So
Where,
he's
yeah.
acknowledging it without taking it personal, but now he's not connecting to it at all.
Well, the funny thing, Tyler, and we're jumping to some conclusions here. If he's acknowledging it because he's trying to be good at empathy, then he's undermining his ability to empathize.
Explain that a little bit.
I mean, it has to be genuine, and so it's if
Well,
okay,
he's doing it so that he can show his wife that he's good at empathy. He's already made it about him.
it's not empathy, and she will feel it, like she will know. Most humans like can absolutely connect to where is your heart, and
Yeah.
especially women. She will know. So even if you're saying all of the right things, if you're saying all of those right things in order to show up as a good guy and see I'm a good guy, it's still about you. That's not empathy. Um, versus like I actually care about her. My heart really is here to listen and to hold this space. And what's beautiful, Tyler, is let's say she's like frustrated or something, and he does that. He holds space, and she's like, "See, you're doing it again. You're just trying to say all the right words and blah 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 blah." It's you'll know in moments like that where if your heart really wants to love her, and you're not concerned about you in that moment, then you'll actually appreciate that she's even opening up more to you about her frustration. Like, oh, you're telling me that I'm just trying to fix it, or I'm not empathetic. I want to connect to what that feels like to be in a relationship with someone that you don't feel empathy from. What is that like? That's got to be hard. And to
Yeah.
be there with her in that. right? So if she comes and she gives you a grade and she says, nope, you're not doing a good job, and you run with that, it's just more proof that you're not being empathetic.
Yeah. I think one of the skills that's coming up right now, along with what you're saying, I have a client who he's termed it for himself that when he gets into those kinds of scenarios and he feels himself wanting to either shrink or get defensive or whatever else, he has a term go through his mind that he calls it radical curiosity. And he's like, I can't get defensive or explain anything. What I need to do is start getting radically curious.
Love it.
And so now I'm going to start asking her questions, trying to understand, trying to understand, trying to understand. And it's, at a very minimum, he's at least showing that he wants to understand her rather than explaining himself away or solving a problem or doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so I simply acknowledge the hurt. It seems to come across as cold and uncaring, but any attempt to understand the hurt, and I seem to find a need to defend the fact that I am being poorly understood. What I intended to say was so different.
Um, yeah. So there it is. That, I mean, that's the defense mechanism, and that is not empathy. What he's missing is what you said earlier, Tyler. Like taking a step back and connecting to her emotion. So her words might be, you did this, you're not empathetic, you're this, you're that, you. And you're taking the bait and going, no, not me. What? I didn't do that. I didn't, you know, versus like what's she actually saying? What she's saying emotionally. What is she saying?
What is she saying? And what you mean by that, Brannon, is you could almost have the practice of when you say that, what you're saying is get rid of all of the content of the words and look at the overall process of what she's saying.
Yeah.
So this is where people get tripped up all the time with empathy is they get stuck in the content of it. And then they have to go and define all nitpick all the details. So, hey, on Thursday you didn't do this and it hurt my feelings. And what we want to do is be like, well, actually it was on Wednesday and I did this and this and this and this and this. you know, like and now all of a sudden we're totally taken out of empathy because we're so stuck on the stupid content.
It's so dumb because it's like, is the partner going to be like, oh, that was Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Wednesday. Okay, cool. Well, it's
Okay.
all
Like,
good then. We're all
well,
good.
you said it was Wednesday now, so we're fine. Things are good.
Right. But in therapy school, they drill this into you over and over again as a therapist. They're like, every single person wants to get cut up in the content. So a couple comes in and fights about sex or money or in-laws or whatever else is the favorite flavor of the week. If the therapist only focuses on the content, they're not doing a good job.
Yes. They're not being
Because what
empathetic.
they need to be doing is focusing on the process. And the process is the whole body interaction that's going on between the two partners as they're trying to negotiate the fight about the money or the sex or the in-laws. Because guess what? They're going to fight the same about the money, the sex, the in-laws, or where they go out to eat that weekend if they don't understand what the process is that's really going on. So when my wife comes to me and says, "You suck at listening," and I go, "You're right. I'm terrible. You deserve somebody better."
The only person that sucks worse at listening than me is you.
Yeah, that. Or I'm like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm ready to listen. Like, tell me everything. Look, my ears are like way big for a reason. Like, all of that is still about me, and I'm
Yeah.
focused on the content of the fact that my wife's upset, and I can't handle that she got upset. Whereas if I focus on the process, I go, something. I trust my wife, and she doesn't normally want to hurt my feelings just out of the blue. So something's going on for her.
Right.
I want to understand what's going on for her.
You know,
I want to connect to what's going on for her. So then I can step in and be like, hey, the fact that you just said that tells me that you might be feeling this or this or this. Like, what's happening right now? Well, you're this and yeah, I did some of those things in the past, and I hate the fact that you're hurting that way. Right? I don't like seeing you suffer that way, but I'm here for you. Like, how close or distant do you want me?
but yeah. And I'd even be careful with I hate the fact. Like, I see that you're feeling that way. Do you see how like
Mm-hmm.
that's sitting in it even more? Tyler, quick story. My daughter, she wears her emotions on her sleeve. She and she is a professional. It's from the day she was born at projecting emotions. So she'll hold them and then she'll push them here, push them there. And one night she blew up, and she blew up right at me, just angry, upset, just she she didn't want to go to bed, and she was just like, and she was crying, and I gave her a minute, and I feel like I did a really good job at empathizing. I went and sat down by her bed and just let her cry and held her. Um well, we get into it. We're like digging into this thing, and I find out that she found out that day that her best friend at school was moving,
Mm.
you know, and that, she had built this friendship over the year, and she like really loved this friend, and it, really important to her. It's interesting. Like, if you look at this situation, she was exploding at me, but she was feeling extremely sad, and there was grief there at the loss of a friend. And I guess the point that I'm trying to make is your example with your wife. Let's say your wife is like, Tyler, you suck at listening. That might 100% have nothing to do with you.
Yeah. It might have been that she got just drilled at work all day with nobody listening to her and feeling dismissed and small. And then I happened to not pay attention for a second. And, but if I take all of that personally, then I can't even be there for her.
Right. So if you sit and you practice that radical curiosity, you don't make it about you, and it like lets her release that energy, that feeling of stress at work all day, not being heard, not and she's able to process that with you because you're holding that space and empathetic. What does that create?
Safety and trust,
Yeah, that's intimacy at its
connection.
finest. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
love. It's that's relationship,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this concept lately, Brannon, and this is where I think shame resiliency ties to it a little bit. Is the more shame resilient we are, the more self-acceptant we are, and the ultimate ability to experience love is actually right at the very, very depths of self-acceptance. People always say, I need to learn to love myself, and I've never really had that sit quite right with me. But what I think I've kind of been mulling over my brain lately is that what I need to do is come to a place of accepting all of me, including my full true nature. Now, this is going to get a little bit weird for a second, but if, and this is a Christian perspective, so bear with me, but
Preach,
we're
preach.
we're we're created, we are created in the image of God. We are the offspring of God, right? And according to Christianity, who is God? God is love.
Yeah.
So the core essence of my being is actually the offspring of love, which is love. So once I accept, the deeper that I go into a place of pure acceptance, that down at the core, past my ego, past my thoughts, past my five senses, at the core, who I am is love. Once I've accepted that, then I'm naturally going to radiate love into the places and the world, the relationships that are around me, because that's who I am. And we're the ones who stifle that, thinking that somebody else needs to show us love or give us love or love us
Yeah.
in a certain
We're
way,
trying to take it.
when in reality, love is, because it is our being. Once we've accepted it, we willingly give it away to whoever will receive it. And we're no worse off for it. Even if people reject it, because at the end, we still are in a place of full self-acceptance.
Yep.
So if we're doing our work on becoming fully self-acceptant, which is shame resiliency, then it doesn't matter how it gets packaged up when somebody comes into your office or your daughter comes and projects all this stuff at you. You go, down at the core of my being, I'm simply just love. Like, what does she need here?
Yeah. Yeah. I
But I still can hold my shape.
yes.
I don't have to take the blame. I don't have to agree with something I don't agree with. I don't, none of that is empathy.
No.
Empathy is being for the one you love.
It's acting in your integrity, so you're holding form, at the same time being vulnerable and open to the connection and energy of another human being. So knowing that you're not going to be influenced so much to the point that you're going to change shapes, like you're going to be in your integrity, but now my heart is open and I am available to connect. And I love what you just said, Tyler. It's interesting because when in relationship you feel like somebody does show up with empathy, it does two things. One, it bonds you to them because it just feels good to be loved, right? And I'm not talking about the codependent, weird, unhealthy ways of attachment. Just it feels good. Relationship feels good, and empathy is how you feel it. But two, especially in a marriage or a committed relationship, when your partner can hold that space and be empathetic and not take your emotions personal and not defend, what it does is it creates trust. It's like, wow, I have a strong partner. I have a partner that can tolerate all my feelings, all my stuff, and I trust them now. They're safe for me, and I can open up more with them. Um, so these little subtleties are not that subtle. Subtleties of defensiveness and compliance and fix it and all of those things. They're loud and clearly like saying to your partner, "I am not strong enough, and you're too much for me." And that just cuts trust and intimacy off at the knees.
That's exactly right. I'm thinking, of, Thich Nhat Hanh has four mantras of how to be. I think they're basically the four mantras of empathy. That's not what he calls them, but if you listen to them and what we're talking about right now, Brandon, you'll see that they overlap. And I'm just going to share them. Now, these are his language, but think about the principle behind each one of these and use them in your own life, in your own relationships with your own language, right? So the first mantra from Thich Nhat Hanh is, "Darling, I am here for you." Really, what all that is about, if we're talking empathy, empathy is presence, the offering of your presence. And you can do that with or without words sometimes. Some of the most powerful empathy that I've ever experienced has been wordless. It's been, I just, we went to this retreat a while back and I just had some random stranger who I'd only met the day before give me a massive hug with no words
In an emotional moment.
in an emotional moment. And I felt so deeply seen and cared for in that moment.
He didn't say anything.
Zero words, just presence. Darling, I am here for you. Right.
He didn't call you darling, but
No, he used his own language, which happened to include no words and just outstretched arms.
yeah,
And then
loved it.
once I hugged him, then he had a couple words, and I hugged him like kind of like a man hug, and then he grabbed me and held me for a second. He's like, "No, be here." And then I eased into his hug, and he's like, "That's right."
I love it.
And then I was like,
Yeah,
"Whoa,
he's the man.
I was like, that is right. This feels so good right now."
Yeah,
And then
that's
he let me go, and
beautiful.
boom, it was done. It was over. He just offered his presence in his way in the moment to connect to what he could feel in me.
Right.
Right? It was his way of saying, "I'm here for you."
Yeah.
Second mantra is, "Darling, I know you're there, and because you're there, it makes me so happy." So the second one is about acknowledging the presence of the other. Like, hey, the fact that you just said that to me, like I joked with this like the other day, like in one of my groups, I was like, guys, do you think you can get to, like, they're complaining about how hard it is to go home to like a mad partner or whatever. And I was like, do you think you could get to a point in your own recovery where on the drive home, you could start to look forward to just having a mad spouse at home? Because because you know exactly what they're going to say and exactly what they're going to do. And they're so familiar to you that you can just love them and know that you know them that well. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna acknowledge your presence. The third mantra is, "Darling, I know you are suffering, and that is why I'm here for you." Listen to that one. It's acknowledgement of what you just talked about earlier, your energy, your emotion, an acknowledgement of the pain, the suffering, whatever's going on. There's no fix, there's no explanation, there's no advice. There is simply an acknowledgement of your being, of
Mm-hmm.
your state of being. And I am here for you. I don't have to run from it and I don't have to fix it. I can tolerate it. I can hold it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the fourth one is this is to be used when you're using it in a relationship where somebody has hurt you, but you still love them. And here's the vulnerability. You go to them and you say, darling, I am suffering. Please help me. So now I'm acknowledging my vulnerabilities and I'm asking for your help in whatever way I need it. That's a
Which
vulnerable
is
thing to do.
way different than you suck,
Yeah. I'm
right?
I'm suffering. I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I'm just had this happen this weekend. Like some weird moment happened in the weekend and my wife got kind of like, whoa, something kind of like a little trigger of some anxiety came up and she came to find me. And then when she found that I was still there and safe and everything, it was fine. But she's like, whoa, like, and all I had to do is be like, all she had to do was come to me and say, whoa, I just had a moment. I'm suffering. Like, I just need a hug. Like, and I'm like, okay, yeah, like here, I'll come hug you. Like, what's up? Do you want to talk about? No, 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 I'm good. I'm good. I just need a hug for a second. Okay, great. Darling, I suffer. Please help me. Now that's hard when there's been a breach of trust and you don't know if you can trust the other person yet. That's risky. That's vulnerable. But those four things, really, if you break it down, that's at the core of what it means to hold space.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
am
love it.
me here for you, and I'm grateful you're there.
Right. I'm present with you.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
I
about
love it.
presence.
I love it. Um, I love it, Tyler. I'd like to do something that I'm hesitant to do. Uh,
Okay.
which is give I have some things that I think would be really helpful to actually practice empathy. Um, and the reason I say I'm hesitant is because of everything we've talked about. Is the things that I go over right now, are made possible by you doing your own trauma work, understanding that you are love, understanding who you are, so then you can really step into these things. Um, and I'd love your thoughts, Tyler, and comments on these. So, um, one is to start to practice identifying emotion. So just like journal, identify your own emotions, put words to them, use the emotion wheel, but practice identifying emotion. If you struggle at that, it's really helpful if you walk in a situation with a person. If they're feeling sad and you're like, oh, you're angry, you're frustrated, and they're like, and you can't get to sad because you only see things one way. So identify emotions. Second thing to practice, and there's all kinds of ways to practice this. Practice non-judgmentally. So learning how to show up without judgment of things, and I'm talking about everything. So if I'm looking at this microphone right here, to not label it as anything, good, bad, awesome, whatever. It's just the microphone. And why is that important, Tyler?
Because once we start to layer our judgment on things, we've already made it personal.
Yeah, and it happens so quickly, right?
We do it 1,000 times a day. Every one of
Right.
us does. It's
So
it's human.
so if you practice mindfulness and bringing yourself back to the moment and trying to get to this neutral state, that neutral state is really important for empathy. So when I'm working with somebody or talking to someone or in a relationship with someone, I don't label their feelings as good, bad, or whatever. They just are. And we're just going to be with them because they just are. Okay. Um, I'm going through these pretty quickly.
Yeah, before you go too far, I
Oh.
just say on the first one with getting to know your emotions, there's a couple of practical things that I have my clients do. I either have them get the feelings wheel. I had one guy carrying it in his pocket with him all the time,
Mm-hmm.
or now I use an app called How We Feel, which you check in and it'll actually walk you through a list of emotions
It's
and
like
you
the
check in.
feelings wheel on steroids.
Yeah,
It's a great app.
basically. And if you just set some alarms on your phone, you can check in a couple times a day. It takes less than a minute, but what you're doing is you're learning to speak the language of emotion in your own body.
Yeah.
And once you learn how it feels in your own body, you start to key into what you see in other people a lot better.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. And then the non-judgment part, I think, is also really good. So go ahead, Brandon.
The next one is learning how to dig deep and dig underneath. You were talking about this earlier, Tyler. You dig underneath the content and you identify the emotions. So these are reflective listening skills. The communication part of actually digging and reflecting and trying to figure out. So when I talk reflective listening skills, what I'm not talking about is like you telling people things or you speaking. You're actually truly taking a step back and getting really good at listening. Like that's really important for empathy. I know, shocker. Um, but there's some really simple reflective listening skills that can make a world of difference. And if you're doing your shame resiliency work, you're doing your trauma work, you still might really struggle to listen because you just haven't it hasn't been modeled to you. You don't know the tools. So it's important that you learn how to reflective listen.
Yeah, there's lots of resources you can do for that. Even a simple book like the classic "How to Win Friends and Influence People" is a great one that teaches some of those things through kind of an entertaining way, or crucial conversations, other things. There's some other you can kind of look up and find active listening skills, and there's tons of stuff out there.
Yep. So I have two more, Tyler. And so the next one is you get really good at validation. And it's fun when you learn this skill. Um, but validation is getting that point where you say things like, that makes sense why you feel that way. Or if I were in that situation, I'd probably feel the same. Um, you can practice this with kids and watch how they respond. It's really fun. My son can be upset about something that I would never be upset about. But when I stop and I listen and I dig with him, and I'm like, it totally makes sense why you're feeling that way, man. Like I get it. You watch what happens to him. It's just like, oh, okay, like, right. But what our defenses do is they invalidate. So what our defenses do, whether it's fixing things or showing up angry or whatever, is they say what you're feeling you should not feel.
Yeah, let me discount your feelings by explaining it away somehow.
Yep. And what validation does is actually help that person know and feel from you that you're okay that I feel the way I feel. Right.
We could probably do a whole podcast just on the, DBT has something called the 6 levels of validation, and they break down everything that you just said, but they tell you what you just did. So, you were present and paying attention, but then you showed accurate reflection. Then what you started doing is like, oh, given our past history, it makes sense you feel that way. Or being a human being, of course you'd feel that way. Right?
Right.
Boom. All of a sudden you're in the different levels of validation. And the cool thing about validation is validation never is solving the problem.
It's never solving the problem. It's just saying, I see your feelings and
And
it's
it's
okay.
yeah.
It's
And
okay that you feel that way.
it's not even fully agreeing with somebody
No,
sometimes, and you can still be highly validating.
but it makes sense and it's
Yeah.
okay. Or I would feel that way too. Like, okay. The last one, Tyler, that I would recommend is to practice sitting in vulnerable moments. Okay. So, like, for example, when that guy was hugging you, Tyler, you were able to soften into that. And you know what? That guy, he was willing to be vulnerable in that moment too. Right. And you taking that hug was awesome. Him giving it was awesome. Me sitting there watching it was awesome. So where there's vulnerable moments, maybe it's something as simple as pulling a coworker aside and just giving a compliment that's really heartfelt and meaningful that you want to talk yourself out of giving um because that would they'd think I'm weird or this or that. Like just be heartfelt, be vulnerable. Practice those moments because a lot of times we want to jump to like the most difficult moment in order to pull out my empathy. And here I am being an empathetic human being. right? So you got to learn how to be there with people in all these moments. So, um, yeah, that's my pointers, Tyler.
I like them, Brandon. Those are really good. I hope people who are listening, we get this question a lot, Brandon, like, how do I get better at empathy? And I think it's one of those things that, like, sometimes the answers we're not quite ready to fully receive as a whole body experience. And what we're looking for is the answer to get ourselves out of the pain because somebody told us we're not good at it, rather than genuinely going, man, I really want to get good at this because I am love. And
And I
once
got
I
it.
know that I'm
Yeah.
love, I want to get good at it, but because I want to offer my love to the world. And so that's why we keep coming back to do your own work, do your own shame and trauma work, come to a deeper place of self-acceptance on a regular basis. And as you do that and then develop these skills that Brandon just outlined, oh my gosh. And what's so crazy about it, it reminds me of the quote by Zig Ziglar that says, you can have everything you want in this life if you just help everyone else get what they want.
Yeah, I love it.
And man, that's what empathy is you want to have a deep, rich, fully connected life. The skill of empathy is gold.
No,
You will be a very wealthy person when it comes to connection and vibrance and love if you master the skill of empathy.
no. I think the guy who asked that question just got more than he bargained for.
Probably.
um, yeah. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about love. And in order to love, you have to do a lot of your own work to figure out that you're loved, right? And then there's all these skills on top of it to be even better at empathy.
Yeah.
So, um, Tyler, that I love talking about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics. So, such an
Yeah.
important thing. It's ultimately the goal of what we're trying to get to.
Amen. It's right at the heart of everything we're doing. So thank you to our listeners for being here with us. We love having some of the comments on the side. If you're listening live, please come and participate in the chat, throw in your own comments and questions. Um, if you want to become a part of the show, you can go to therapybrothers.org and you can sign up to become a call on the show. We've had a glitch in our system, but I think we're getting that fixed. So if you're listening to this, by the time you hear it on the normal podcast platforms, you should be able to go over. We'd love to talk with you. It's always better because you are the secret ingredient to this podcast. So, thank you for being here. We love you guys. And until next time, keep on keeping on.